Hey everyone, and welcome to Evolve Every Day. Today, we're diving into something truly profound, a story that will help us understand ourselves and the world around us a little better. Some truths might be tough to hear, but I promise if you stick with this video until the end, you'll uncover some surprising insights that could totally shift your perspective on life. So stay tuned because there are a lot of unexpected revelations waiting for you.
Legend has it, there's a trick to catching monkeys. You carve 2 holes in a wooden plank, just big enough for a monkey to fit its hand in. Behind the plank, you place some peanuts. The monkey sees the peanuts and instinctively reaches in. But then, its hand, clutched around the peanuts, can't pull back out of the hole. The monkey holds onto its peanuts and it's easily caught. Poor monkey. Its downfall was valuing the food too much, not considering other possibilities, and needing that food so desperately. The plight of the poor is often much the same. I know how busy your lives can be. Even so, what I'm about to share isn't always easy to grasp, especially if you only hear it once. My advice? Watch till the end, and then listen to it again and again whenever you have a spare moment, or are doing chores around the house. Share it, save it to a playlist, whatever makes it easier for you. I'm confident that within just a few months, your way of thinking will leap to a whole new level.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Evolve Every Day. The poor lack money, that goes without saying. The profound suffering this lack brings to them also goes without saying. Therefore, the poor need money, even more so, that goes without saying. This fear of lacking money can easily lead the poor to value money excessively. Over-focusing on money often means overlooking everything else that isn't money. As a result, the poor gain very little and lose a great deal. The emotional damage caused by a lack of money is often more terrifying than the material deprivation itself. Jack London, in his novel Love of Life, tells the story of a lost man. This unfortunate soul struggles alone in the wilderness, hungry, thirsty, tired, lonely, and desperate, with an old wolf, equally hungry and weary, always trailing him, waiting for him to fall so it can feast. Yet, in the end, it wasn't the wolf who ate him, but he who ate the wolf. The novel concludes with the man finally returning to his ship, eating profusely and gaining a lot of weight. He continuously ate, and after eating, he would wander around collecting bread. He gathered so much bread, stuffing every nook and cranny of the ship's cabin. Even though the bread was dry and crumbly, he collected it tirelessly every single day. The survival instinct of the poor is incredibly strong. Their will to overcome hardship and suffering is truly moving. But the ultimate outcome of their efforts might just be a pile of stale bread. A hungry person often develops a hungry mindset. They cling tightly to a piece of bread and refuse to let go, even when full. They can't help but hoard, fearing a return to the days of hunger. But when your hands are full of bread, you can't use them to grasp anything else. As a result, you'll only ever have a few pieces of bread, never anything more valuable. The narrow vision of the poor often stems from this hungry mindset. The poor fear poverty, and paradoxically, they're afraid to let go of what they have right in front of them to seek new paths. There's a story about a poor man. One day, his wife brought home an egg. The poor husband immediately began to dream. If we use this egg to hatch a chicken, and that chicken lays eggs, and those eggs hatch more chickens, then we can trade the flock for a sheep. The sheep will have lambs, and we'll trade the sheep for a cow. The cow will have calves, and we'll sell the cows to buy land and build a house. Then I'll marry a second wife. Lost in his fantasy, his wife suddenly snapped out of it and, furious, smashed the egg on the ground, shattering her husband's dream into thin air. This is a classic parable about the poor. That poor man might regret for the rest of his life that he revealed his thoughts, causing his precious small capital to be destroyed. But he truly couldn't help himself. Years ago, Martin Luther King's "I Have a Dream" speech moved countless hearts.
The poor are human too. All the desires of the rich, the poor also possess. Good food, fine clothes, a beautiful spouse. These are primal needs. Why shouldn't he dream of marrying a second wife? It's just that the egg hadn't even hatched into a chicken, and the egg itself was still in his wife's hand. Yet he was already having such grand dreams. Is that appropriate? It's certainly worth reflecting on. It's not to say that the future of the poor is without light, but the winding and difficult path ahead needs to be considered by them. Theoretically, once a money-making model is found, exponential growth of capital isn't impossible. Many mythical stories of wealth, like Bill Gates for example, started with capital as small as an egg. But there are countless poor people in the world, countless eggs, and only one Bill Gates. Will the next one be you? It's hard to say. The smaller your capital, the greater your risk. When you're holding only one egg, the slightest touch can make you lose everything. This is the inherent vulnerability of starting with nothing. Your starting point is just too low. Even if you manage to jump on the fastest possible train, the growth of your capital is like rolling a snowball. When that snowball is tiny, you can roll it with all your might, but compared to the massive snowballs already out there, your growth feels heartbreakingly slow. The initial number is just too small for the growth to matter. A 100% increase for you is nothing compared to a 100% increase for them. The results are worlds apart. What's worse, when the weather changes, when things get tough, guess whose snowball is the first to melt? People with limited means often start with small ventures, but trying to turn a small business into a large one is like trying to turn a single egg into a herd of cattle. There are just so many steps, so many variables in between. If you don't live through that entire grueling process, you'll never understand the very nature of wealth. You'll never truly become one of the wealthy. Even if you suddenly came into a large fortune, you wouldn't know how to handle it. Sometimes wealth itself is a crushing pressure. Deep-sea divers know that if you plunge into the depths too quickly without preparation, the pressure will destroy you. This isn't a metaphor, it's a law of nature. In almost every culture, the poor are placed in a position of disadvantage. Think about the power dynamics of something as simple as a dinner party or a business meeting. There are rules. The person with status takes the power seat, the one at the head of the table with their back to the wall facing the entrance. This position gives them a full view of everything, no surprises from behind, a complete command of the room, like a general on a battlefield. In contrast, the person with lower status is forced to take the vulnerable seat, completely exposed. They can't see the whole picture. When the food is served, they're the ones who have to duck and weave just to avoid getting something spilled on them. And that is the reality for the poor. They are always in the vulnerable seat. When danger strikes, they are the first to bear the consequences. When opportunities arise, they are the last to benefit. It's an unavoidable truth. Everyone wants the seat at the head of the table, but not everyone can have it. If you try to force your way into that seat without earning it, even if you're not asked to leave, you'll just make everyone in the room deeply uncomfortable. This position defines the poor as the underdogs, lacking the advantages the wealthy take for granted. So every time society goes through a major shift, they are the ones who suffer the most. Every time a new opportunity appears, even though specifically designed to help them, they receive the smallest fraction of the benefit. Look back at the great revolutions in history. Apart from a tiny few who find their fortune, the vast majority of the poor, as a class, remain poor. For someone to climb from the bottom to the top, it's almost never about a sudden lucky break. Even if it happens, that kind of wealth rarely lasts. It has to be built through relentless, long-term effort, often over generations. It's like panning for gold. The vast majority of the sand is washed away, leaving only a few precious flakes behind. The poor are the underdogs, and in this game, it often feels like they're always the underdogs. In the stock market, you see this play out every single day.
Small, retail investors are constantly straining their ears, listening for rumors, hoping to ride the coattails of the big players, the whales. But more often than not, they are simply led astray, becoming the very prey the whales feed on. Let's be clear, the whales of the stock market, the institutions, the hedge funds, the company insiders, are the ones who can actually move the market. They are in it for one reason and one reason only, to make money. So who loses? The market doesn't print money, it only moves it from one place to another. The money either flows from your pocket to theirs or from their pocket to yours. For ages, there have been whispers about how the big players make their money, a strategy they call pump and dump, which is exactly how you treat prey. In a world where everyone is scrambling to get ahead, who is the most likely to fall for it? The answer is painfully obvious. Countless books and articles claim to teach the little guy how to fight back against the institutional giants, usually boiling it down to two methods: fundamental analysis and technical analysis. But let's be real. For the average person working a 9-to-5 with limited savings, where do you find the time to sift through mountains of data, to predict the moves of the giants, to play a high-stakes chess match against seasoned professionals who make split-second decisions for a living? When you dance with wolves, the most likely outcome is that you're the one who gets eaten. The retail investor and the institutional giant are simply not in the same league. And this isn't just an uphill battle. It's like bringing a knife to a gunfight. Their status, their capabilities, their resources, it's all on a different level. The information they have access to is permanently asymmetrical. They know things you don't. And by the time you learn something, it's already old news to them. The price chart tells the story. You're left trying to guess the cause long after the effect has already played out. By the time you finally understand what happened, the game is over. There's no chance left to fight back. It's not just the stock market. In almost every arena, those with fewer resources as investors are at a profound disadvantage. This information asymmetry makes it impossible for you to accurately assess risk, leaving you in a constant state of being exploited. Your own limited capacity means you can't compete with the professional sharks managing massive fortunes. They are a collective that does this for a living. Their very existence is predicated on your losses. The vulnerable player in the stock market is the small investor. The vulnerable person in society is the one struggling financially. The poor are easy targets, partly because of a limited perspective, but also because of their inherently weaker position. They lack security. The person with nothing has only a single broken bowl, while the wealthy have a mountain of assets. You might think the rich have more to lose, but the truth is, misfortune doesn't discriminate based on your bank account. Even a homeless person with half a sandwich can have it snatched away by someone even more desperate. The poor have less money, but they also have far fewer defenses. Every city has its gated communities, the enclaves of the super rich. You can bet there are plenty of envious eyes on them, but with high iron gates, private security patrols, and infrared cameras, what kind of thief would dare to try? In any major city, it's rare to meet someone who hasn't had a bike stolen, but a stolen car? That's a different story. A stolen car is a major incident that gets a lot of attention, and the case might actually get solved. And even if the car isn't found, insurance will cover the loss, barely making a dent in their finances. But a stolen bicycle? Who's going to investigate that? For someone struggling, that bicycle could have been their lifeline, a significant asset. Think of the old stories about a king who, bored in his palace, would dress as a commoner to walk among his people, just to get a breath of fresh air and a taste of so-called freedom. People struggling to get by might hear that and try to comfort themselves. We may be poor, but we're free. Even the king is jealous of us. But they forget that their own burdens are terrifyingly real. The king is just a tourist in the land of poverty.
He might change his clothes, but he's still the king, with bodyguards watching from a distance, attendants following behind, and a purse full of gold. He's just curiously and casually experiencing what he imagines to be the hardship of his people. It's like a city dweller today packing a Swiss Army knife, GPS, and bottled water for a weekend trip just 20 miles out of town to feel the struggle. Even if they eat a simple meal of vegetables at a farmhouse, it's not hardship. For them, it's just a cleanse to aid digestion. The suffering of the poor can only be truly understood by the poor. Living day in and day out in a chaotic, disorderly, and sometimes violent environment, the poor develop their own philosophy for survival. They often don't trust the law. They know the law is just words on paper. It's the people enforcing it that matter. In theory, laws are created to maintain order and protect the weak, but in reality, in both the writing of the laws and in their enforcement, the wealthy always seem to get the better end of the deal. In many places, you hear heartbreaking stories of migrant workers cheated out of their wages, resorting to the most desperate public acts just to be heard. Legally speaking, their actions are wrong. But as a migrant worker, can they afford a lawyer? And even if a kind-hearted lawyer offered to help for free, can they afford the crippling cost of time? For people worried about their next meal, the legal process is an eternity. They could starve to death long before a verdict is ever reached. And even then, getting the money they're owed is still no guarantee. There's a deep-seated distrust of the system among those struggling with poverty. In their minds, a raw, pragmatic view of the world has taken root. It's a world where the winner takes all, where the outcome is all that matters, regardless of the methods used to achieve it. This is why conflict in high-poverty areas can be so incredibly intense. When you have little to lose, you have less to fear. Less fear can lead to bigger risks, and sometimes those risks cross a line. The most chaotic and socially frayed neighborhoods in any city are almost always the poorest ones. Yet, for so many, these are the only places they can afford to call home. We have a saying that money can be the root of all evil, and often, wealth is the source of disaster. But there's a flip side to that coin. Once your assets reach a certain level, they create a bubble of safety around you. Turn on the news or scroll through your social media feed. Who are the victims of the robberies and violent crimes you see? More often than not, they are people with very little. The amount of money stolen might seem pitiful to someone well off, but for someone else, it was worth taking a life. It's a harsh, heartbreaking truth. The poor are tragically vulnerable, and their ability to protect themselves is a world away from what the wealthy can afford. This vulnerability also makes them prime targets for deception. The street-level scammers, the ones with the 3-card Monty games or the fake jewelry, who do they prey on? They look for the elderly and the desperate. It's almost impossible to imagine a wealthy person falling for a cheap trick on a street corner. People are usually scammed for one of 3 reasons: greed, a hidden agenda, or fear that someone is exploiting them. Truly wealthy individuals have established streams of income. They aren't dreaming of some magical, out-of-the-blue windfall. They've been through the ringer. They've learned the hard lessons, and they've developed a sharp eye for what's real and what's not. If they hadn't, how could they have ever built their fortune, let alone kept it? You see the ads everywhere, promising you can get rich without capital, without special skills, without even leaving your house. Just sit at home, click a few buttons, and watch the money roll in. But let's be real, when has life ever been that easy? These are meticulously designed traps, and they're set for the very people who are inexperienced and burning with a desire for a better life. This world is full of smart people. If there was a business with high profits and low risk, you wouldn't need an advertisement to find it. People would be stampeding towards it. The result? The market would flood and the profit margins would plummet back to average. Wise, thoughtful, engaging. No matter how uneven the riverbed is, the surface of the water will always find its level. The flow of money in our society is the same. No matter the industry, the return on investment eventually settles around an average value. If a venture promises huge returns and no one else is competing, it can only mean one thing. The risk is so enormous that it's scaring everyone else away. There's no such thing as a free lunch. Risk and reward will always be two sides of the same coin. The truth is, every scam has a fatal flaw. If you just look closely enough, you'll find it. In the whole scheme, there are always critical factors that are completely out of your control. These are the trapdoors, the hidden levers that, if they fail, bring the whole thing crashing down on you. And that's not an accident. It's part of the con artist's calculated design. But someone struggling, someone desperate, gets so mesmerized by the fantasy of a beautiful outcome that they become blind to the risk. They've never navigated the world of finance, so they don't understand the cold, hard nature of capital, which seeks nothing but its own growth. They naively believe someone has come to save them. In their excitement, they forget they're the ones making the investment. The money they put in might not be a fortune to a billionaire, but to them, it's a lifetime of savings. It's everything. Think about it. If a billionaire were to invest their entire net worth, billions of dollars, do you think they'd do it without painstaking research, without a team of experts, without a flawless plan? Of course not. But the person with little to lose gets swept up in the heat of the moment and dives in head first. By the time they realize they've been had, the scammers are long gone. And what can you do then, besides cry out in despair? It's already so hard for the poor to build any savings in the first place. A blow like this, just one time, can be enough to ensure they never get back on their feet again. So if you're in that position, what are you afraid of? People in poverty feel that same sense of urgency. They desperately want to change their circumstances, and fast. The motivation is there, but it's crippled by a deep-seated fear because they've never felt in control of their own destiny. They have no experience in the world of business. It's like someone who's never used a computer before, terrified that pressing a key too hard will break the keyboard or that simply connecting to the internet will instantly infect it with a virus. In reality, it's not nearly that scary. For the person afraid of the computer, the most important step is to plug it in and press the power button. And for the person in poverty who wants to start a new chapter, the most important thing is to simply begin. Anything we want to do requires certain conditions, and getting all those conditions just right often takes a lot of effort and a long time. Sometimes, before we even get to the perfect moment, the world around us has already changed. The old conditions aren't met, and new problems pop up. The result? We still can't get started, and eventually, we just throw our hands up and say, what's done is done. Many people spend their whole lives waiting for the so-called opportunity, waiting for the conditions to be just right. They wait until their hair turns gray and their hearts grow old. And in the end, even if those perfect conditions arrive, they might not even want to do it anymore. Opportunity isn't something you wait for, it's something you create by doing. If you don't act, you'll never have the chance. Just start doing it. As you go, look for opportunities, create conditions, fix what's broken, and improve along the way. As long as your general direction is right, even things that seemed hopeless at first can lead to great results in the end. And that's the final, and perhaps most important, lesson from our story today. What are your thoughts? Have you ever waited for the perfect moment, only for it to never arrive? Share your insights and experiences in the comments below. If you found this life lesson valuable and thought-provoking, please give this video a thumbs up, share it with friends who might benefit, and of course, subscribe to the Evolve Everyday channel to catch more inspiring stories. Thank you for staying with me until the very end. See you in the next video.